Hey, welcome to the series of everything you need to know about Python in simplest possible way. In the series of pattern printing, previously we have seen so many patterns and solved using for loop, string concatenation, and also using string multiplication. In this video, we will be solving this particular pattern using for loop, string concatenation, and using string multiplication. So if you don't know about string concatenation and string multiplication, watch out my first video of pattern printing 1 where I have explained clearly about string concatenation and string multiplication. So now let us go ahead and solve this particular pattern using all these things. So for that reason, first I will be taking a variable rows so to mention how many number of rows that we want in this pattern. So if you carefully observe this pattern here, we are not only having this particular stars, in middle of these stars we are having spaces. So to keep track of these spaces, I will mention one more variable which is of spaces. I am assigning these spaces with 0. So now you don't have to worry much about this first row and last row. We will mention a condition to exclude these particular rows. So why I have mentioned these spaces is to 0 is that in the second row, from second row onwards, we are keep tracking of these spaces. For that reason, I am mentioning spaces is equal to 0. So in the second row, we don't have any spaces. For that reason only, I have mentioned spaces equal to 0. So now we will be generating a range of values. So for that reason, I am using for loop I in membership operator range. By using this range function, we can actually generate a range of values. So now what I want is that I wanted to generate a range of values from 1 to how many number of rows we are having. For that reason, I am mentioning rows plus 1. So by mentioning this rows plus 1 only, I can able to get how many number of rows, which is of 5. So if I mention only rows, I will get only up to the value 4. I want the value 5 also, because of that reason I have mentioned rows plus 1. So in the for loop, what we will be doing is that first we will be printing this particular star here. So before printing, we need to define a condition. That condition is that if I equal to 1, which is of mentioning this, if I equal to first row, and also if I equal to how many number of rows we are having, which is of 5. If I equal to first row, if I equal to last row, what we will be doing? So we will be printing the stars as it is. We are not going to do anything with them, because in this middle rows we are having spaces, but in first row and last row we don't have any spaces. For that reason, I will mention simply I will multiply this star simply with this particular I. So in this I only we are generating the range of values, right? So for that reason, I will mention simply like this. If I execute this, we can able to see the result like this. So now we wanted to generate this in middle pattern here. So these patterns having space in middle of these stars. So for that reason, I will mention else if this condition is failed, any values in between of this first row and last row, what we will be doing. So let's see. So we will be printing. Initially, we are having a star here. For that reason, I will mention a star. Later, after completing of the stars, what we will be having is that we are having these spaces, right? So for that reason, I will multiply this space with the spaces variable. Initially, in the second row, we have 0 spaces. That is the reason we can get the 0 spaces. After that, we will be incrementing the spaces by 1 on each iteration. So we will do that later. Now, at last, what we are getting is another star at the end. So for that reason, I will mention a star at the end simply. So now we will increment the spaces on each iteration. For that reason, I am mentioning space plus equal to 1. By mentioning this space plus equal to 1, the spaces will be incremented by 1 on each iteration. So now if I execute this, so I can able to get the result exactly as expected in the above. So this is how we can able to get this particular pattern. So I hope you can able to understand this logic. If not, let me explain one more time. So initially we are taking rows to get how many number of rows we wanted. So in the pattern we have observed in middle of this pattern we have spaces. For that reason, to keep track of those spaces, we are getting this spaces variable with 0. So later we are generating a range of values from 1 to how many number of rows we are having. So in the for loop, what we are doing is that we are checking a condition that if I equal to 1, which means if the row is 1, or the row is at the last row, first row and last row. At that time, we are just simply multiplying these stars with how many number of rows that the rows having. So if this condition fails, we come to this else block and printing these stars, and in the first we will be printing star, and in the last line we will be printing the stars. In middle we are printing the spaces by incrementing the spaces on each iteration with 1. Like this, by mentioning this all these condition, we will be getting this particular pattern. Now what we will do is that I will take input dynamically from the user. So for that reason I am mentioning int, because I want integer variable, integer value. So also I will mention input. By using this input, we can get the values from the user. So I will give prompt to the user to know what exactly the user need to give. So I am using enter any number. So if I execute this, I am asking, and I have been asked to enter any number. If I give 5 here, so it was giving the pattern like this. So now if I give, let's say, number 9, this is giving this particular pattern, which is of similar pattern that what we expected. Like this, by this logic, we can generate this pattern by any input given by the user. So I hope you can able to understand, and I hope you have understood this logic. So in the next video we will see how we can print this particular this particular pattern. If you can able to find the solution for this pattern, comment your solution in the comment section. Anyway, we will discuss this particular pattern solution in the next video. To keep updated, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications to all, so that whenever I upload any video, you will get the notification. And I hope you have understood this whole logic. If that is true, hit the like button. And having said that, thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.